And welcome to my tape on getting started with your personal computer, an introduction to DOS 6.0 and 6.2. In this tape, you'll learn the basics of how your computer works with DOS. Viewers, we will be displaying and working with DOS 6.0 for this lesson. If you have version 6.2 on your system, you may notice that some messages on your computer screen may vary slightly from our display. Don't worry, the commands given in this lesson work the same in both versions. For this lesson, I assume you have a computer with at least one floppy drive and 6.0 or 6.2 installed on a hard drive, and at least one software program like a word processor or spreadsheet program already installed. You'll need at least one disk containing some data or programs and 2 new floppy disks for use in drive A. I also assume you have a mouse installed. If you don't have DOS 6.0 or 6.2 installed, the instructions are simple. First, turn on your computer and its monitor. Next, exit Windows or any other shell program if one appears to the DOS C prompt. Before starting setup, you will need 1 or 2 empty disks for drive A. Now insert setup disk 1 in the appropriate drive. Then type either A:setup or B:setup depending on which drive you used. Simply follow the instructions that appear on screen. We recommend you press Enter or answer Yes to accept DOS's suggestions for installing itself. If you have questions concerning the procedures or options in setup, press F1 for help. You can exit out of setup by pressing the F3 key. During setup, 6.0 determines what computer hardware and software you have now and installs itself accordingly. When setup prompts you to insert the uninstalled disk or disk, do so using drive A only. If your computer doesn't work properly after setup, you'll need the uninstalled disk or disks to uninstall DOS 6.0. Although setup suggests you run double space after finishing installation, I suggest that you wait until you are more comfortable with DOS and how data compression will affect the other software applications on your hard drive before you do this. Setup also suggests you run MemMaker now. Don't. I'll show you how to run MemMaker later. Before going further, I'd like to introduce you to my student helper, Lisa. Ready to get started, Lisa?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, let's start off by learning the basics of how a computer works. You've probably heard the words hardware and software before. Well, the information on the floppy and hard disk is referred to as software. The computer parts such as the monitor, CPU, keyboard, and printer are referred to as hardware. The main part of the system is the CPU, which stands for Central Processing Unit. It contains all these computer chips and circuit boards and is the factory for processing data. It is the brains of the system. The one bank of chips I would like to point out here is the RAM chips, which stands for Random Access Memory. These chips take into their memory information or data that is stored on a floppy or hard disk and keeps it there while you are using it. For example, if you were to load a game into the computer, the information on your game disk would be put into the RAM chip so you could play the game. The thing to remember here is once you turn the computer off, the information stored in these chips is lost. The information on your disk, however, is permanent. So when you want to play the game, you just load it into the computer again. The keyboard is the main component for entering data into the system. It is similar to a typewriter, however, the added keys makes it possible to do many more commands. All keyboards have the same types of keys, but vary as to where these keys are located. They all have function keys which can be located on the left of the keyboard or along the top. These keys, usually marked with an F on them, have many purposes. Each program you run will use them in different ways. Some programs come with templates that fit over these keys, showing what they are used for. All keyboards have arrow keys which help you point and move to different parts of the computer screen. The Enter key, sometimes referred to as the return key, is the most used key of all. It usually has a bent arrow on it. This key is used to tell the computer to accept commands we want it to do. We will demonstrate how some of these keys work when we have something on our screen to work with. The monitor is where you see displayed the programs and data that is entered into the computer. They vary widely as to the resolution. meaning the sharpness of the image and how many colors they can display. Monochrome monitors have one color, and some monitors can display millions of colors. Printers also vary widely. The three basic styles are dot matrix, which print with little dots and makes letters look a little ragged. These printers have the capability to print graphic designs. Daisy wheel printers, also referred to as letter quality printers, print with solid letters like a typewriter and prints high quality letters, but is limited to one style and size of its letters. The laser printers also print very high quality letters, but unlike the Daisy wheel, can print all different sizes and styles of letters and print out all kinds of graphic designs. All of these components are worthless without programs to run with them. The programs that allow you to do things with a computer are always originally stored on a floppy disk. A floppy disk comes in two different sizes, 5 1/4 and 3 1/2 inch. They get the name floppy because the actual disk is floppy, even though the floppy disk in the 3 1/2 inch size is enclosed in a hard case. These disks hold lots and lots of information. It's kind of like the way a cassette works, which stores and plays sound. The diskette stores and plays data. When inserted into the computer can read the information on that disk and display it on the screen. Games, computer programs, and even letters to a friend are all stored on these disks and are referred to as data. Taking care not to damage a disk is very important. You should always put them in their protective sleeve and store them in a safe place. A hard shell, dust-free container is best. Keep away from heat and sunlight, drinks and cigarette smoke, magnetic sources such as telephones and TV sets, physical damage such as bending them, and don't touch the exposed area of the disk. There is another type of disk called a hard disk. The hard disk is a much thicker disk, usually located inside the computer itself, and can hold many, many times the data a floppy disk can hold. And a newer disk called the CD-ROM disk can hold even more data than the hard disk. Other than the speed and amount of information these disks hold, there is no difference in the way information is stored on them. Since the hard disk drive are internally mounted and can hold much more data than floppies, it has become the practice to take information stored on floppy disk, such as computer programs, and store them on the hard disk. To keep these stored programs separated on the hard drive, you create what is called directories for each of these programs so you can tell them apart. The first thing you need to store on your hard drive is DOS. When you installed DOS 6.0, it created its own directory on the hard drive. DOS stands for Disk Operating System and is the program that makes your computer work. In other words, you cannot run any software programs on your computer without first loading DOS. And what is a disk operating system? Quite simply, an operating system is a translator. You see, you have your computer hardware, that is the CPU, monitor, and keyboard, and you have your software, that is the word processors, games, or other programs. The operating system takes instructions from these programs and translates them into instructions the hardware can understand. Computers are very simple machines. They need system software such as DOS to transform high-level commands like copy this letter into simpler instructions the computer can understand. Okay, Lisa, let's turn the computer on. Make sure to turn your monitor on too. With DOS already installed on your hard disk, this is all you need to do. This starting action is also called booting up the computer. The disk drive will activate and you will see a light blinking on the hard drive as DOS is copied from the hard drive into the system memory or RAM in the CPU. You will hear a beep in a few seconds. Some information about your DOS and computer system will appear at the top of your screen. You may then see a request for the date and time. Some computers are set up with an internal system for keeping track of this automatically, so you won't see this. You can skip entering the date and time by hitting the Return Enter key twice. Let's do that. Simply press the Enter key twice. That is the one with the bent arrow on it. I must emphasize that entering the date is very important once you've started working with programs and documents on your computer.